Hi and welcome to Warts and All Wellbeing. Hope you had a nice weekend and back into the grind of it again on Monday. Andrew and I went for a massive walk yesterday. It was a 10k walk and I didn't realise just how difficult the terrain would be. There was a lot of hills, lots of hills, and there was also a big beach walk which was lovely but difficult walking in the sand. But the day was beautiful, the sun was shining and it was really nice to be out. Had my plastic mask on, so I had plenty of airflow, which is good, and really enjoyed the day. And here we are on Monday. So what I want to share with you today relates to the video that I posted on Friday. So if you haven't seen that, you might want to go and check that out first. Basically, I was talking about the need to boost my emotions and my emotional state and to have some of those positive emotions and feel good stuff. And so that was the strategy. And the reason that I needed to do that is because I'd had some disappointments and I needed to be able to function well. And I knew if I sat with that feeling of disappointment and upset that was there just under the surface, I knew that I wouldn't be able to function. And I needed to be able to get on and do the things that I needed to do. So I used my strategy and lifted my mood and was able to get through and do the things that I needed to do. However, I've been reflecting on that over the weekend and really don't want anyone to run away with the idea that if we're talking well-being, pushing down our feelings that are not that pleasant is the way to go, because we know that that's actually not true at all. So in the research, what they tend to talk about is positive and negative emotions. And I don't particularly like those as phrases because I don't think they're particularly helpful. I think that when we talk about positive and negative emotion, a lot of the time we equate that with good and bad, and that's simply not the case. There is no good emotion and there is no bad emotion. Emotions are just emotions, and there may be a right way to express them, but there's no such thing as having a bad emotion. So even though the literature refers to positive and negative emotions, I personally much prefer the terms sort of like pleasant and unpleasant emotions, or difficult and not so difficult emotions. So when I'm thinking about negative emotions, I'm referring to those not so pleasant ones, the ones that maybe we struggle with a little bit more, and maybe if we're honest, we wish we weren't experiencing. So on Friday, there was this kind of low level, just under the surface feeling of disappointment. And over the weekend, I was deliberate in going back and letting that surface. I didn't wallow in it. I don't think that's a solution. In fact, I've got a friend who's a psychologist, and she says whenever she has anything that happens like disappointing or whatever, she allows herself 48 hours grace. And so for 48 hours, she's allowed to feel miserable, down in the dumps, blue, whatever it is she wants to feel. And then after 48 hours, she's like, right, okay, that's enough. It's time to move on and do something else and to shift that energy. And I think that it's important for us to recognize that sometimes we do need to make space for what we're feeling. I think often we can judge it and we can tell ourselves, I shouldn't be feeling like this, or, I've got nothing to complain about, or this isn't helping me. And we can squish it down and try and move on way too quickly. I think one of the criticisms that's often leveled at positive psychology, which is where the science that underpins a lot of these wellbeing strategies is from, is that it's a happyology and it's all about being happy, clappy and, shiny and everything's all right. And yet often it's not all right, and we do need to acknowledge that and make space for that and make room for that. So there's a whole bunch of research, and, maybe over the next week, maybe I'll unpack some of the research around kind of how to manage your emotions, especially when you're feeling those emotions that are pretty difficult to cope with, where there's unpleasant ones, and what we do with those emotions. But the number one thing that all the psychology and researchers will say is that if you squish it down and pretend it's not there, and maybe you know this from your own experience too, then by pushing it down, pretending it's not there, ignoring it, it just gets louder and louder until in the end it kind of comes out in this emotional outburst, which maybe you don't have so much control or not able to manage so effectively. So I spent the weekend, on and off, up and down, thinking about what had happened and just letting myself go through that process, and letting it be, allowing that space, not judging myself in it, speaking kindly to myself. Whole work again around self-compassion with Kristen Neff is just to be kind, like I'm experiencing suffering, and acknowledge that that's how I'm feeling, and to speak to myself like I would speak to a friend. If a friend had just had a disappointment, you wouldn't be saying to them, oh, well, never mind. You know, although when you're younger and you split up with a boyfriend, there's always some well-meaning person who tells you, oh, there's plenty more fish in the sea. And I remember as a teenager going, yeah, but I don't want to go out with the fish. So yeah, maybe it depends on the kind of friend you've got. But I guess what I'm saying is that when we allow ourselves to have that emotion and just to acknowledge what is, experience it, let it do its thing, until it's time to say, all right, I'm going to put that one down and now it's time to move on and to look for other things. So hopefully that's helpful to you. It may be that you're experiencing some particular struggle, or you're just feeling a bit low, or, you know, hey, I don't know what your situation is, but whatever it is, making room for your emotional state and giving it the space that it needs. And you can do that with the ones that feel really good too. You know, so often we have an emotional feeling that goes, oh, that feels really good. Anyway, move on, move on, move on. And even then, the research talks about just giving space and amplifying that feeling that you've got that feels really nice, feels really good, just kind of allowing it to be. I guess that's why we talk about savoring rather than just rushing through the emotion. We actually stop and go, oh, wow, this feels really good. I'm going to take a few moments just to allow it to be and to give it the space that it needs and for me to really connect with it. So whether that's one of the positive emotions or whether it's one of the uncomfortable, difficult emotions, just giving it the space that it needs and being okay with that, being okay with the fact that you're feeling that emotion is all part of well-being. You know, that phrase, I don't know who said it, but you know, this too shall pass. You won't be feeling like this forever. There will be brighter days. The world will keep spinning. You'll have a good night's sleep. Tomorrow may well feel differently. But just make sure that you're giving yourself that space that you need to feel the emotion while you need to. All right, hopefully that's helpful. And like I say, maybe this week we'll unpack a little bit more around emotions. Or maybe we won't. I'll just see how I feel tomorrow. All right, take care. Thanks.